But mark my words, by the next week's devlog, I will have the playable demo updated with the next chapter. Mark my words. Right. Well, as you might be able to see if you're watching this the day it is uploaded, I haven't yet published an updated version of the ROM hack. I got close, and I have plenty to talk about, but because it turns out that the universe itself teamed up with my own brain to slow me down, I didn't quite make it. But let's start at the beginning. I properly implemented will-o-wisps into this chapter. They now each have a 1 in 3 chance to appear each turn independent of one another, and they are quite helpful, I'd say, illuminating large parts of the map and indicating spots where lost treasure can be found. Just be careful not to approach these spots while they are there. Otherwise... Though a noteworthy detail is that Ilma is not attacked this way by the will-o-wisps, because they are a part of her world and the creation cannot harm the creator. Only the fiends are a threat to her, which is just another one of the tiny details that I want this game to be filled with. You may have also noticed in the background footage that the will-o-wisps disappear completely before you can see the enemies move on their turn, which is something you could mistake for an intentional design choice, but it is in fact just a way to bypass an issue I ran into. You see, in order to serve as illumination for the map, the will-o-wisps have to be allied units. But if they are allied units, then they will be seen as potential targets by the enemies, and even if they are given infinite defense or 100% dodge chance, the enemies will try attacking them, causing issues with their placement and such. You can set up the enemy AI to ignore certain characters, but that would require changing multiple AI types to include that check, or more precisely 6 of those checks, because each of the will-o-wisps has to be set up as a different character in order to make it possible to teleport them out of the map and back to their spots. So the solution I arrived at after getting stuck at this for a bit was to bypass the issue completely. The enemies can't attack the will-o-wisps if the will-o-wisps aren't there during the enemy turn. Back in the All About Anna devlog, I mentioned that there was a mechanic I planned for her that I didn't want to spoil back then, but now that it's implemented I do want to talk about it. Because I knew that Anna appears as a face of some UI prompts, and my brain took that knowledge and randomly went, if that's the case, then it wouldn't be a huge leap to have her be aware of the player's presence. So yes, Anna will have a couple of fourth-wall breaking conversations with the player themselves. And it was important to me to make these be actual conversations, not just Anna monologuing at you, at least as much of a conversation as the GBA Fire Emblem engine allows for. So to begin with, Anna asks for your name using an existing system left over from Fire Emblem 7, but that just scratches the surface of what I want this to be. It wasn't enough for me to have the player's choices have cosmetic consequences in these conversations. The whole game is meant to be filled with meaningful changes triggered by a variety of events. I wanted these conversations to do the same. And to start with, I decided let's lean on Anna's personality and have her immediately try to sell something to the player. Something that it wouldn't make sense to offer to anyone in-universe. And then let's make it something that wouldn't be a no-brainer to buy, because what's the point of having a choice then? That is how I arrived at the idea of Anna offering the player an entire game mechanic, one that is a contentious topic in the Fire Emblem community. Of course, I still had to choose the mechanic itself. A way around permadeath was my first idea, and one I immediately discarded, as it would clash with the world building I've done. Unbreakable weapons would be fine enough, I guess, but not particularly exciting. Next was a way to customize the skills of the playable characters, but that carries a risk of throwing the balance out of the window if it's an optional feature. So I looked up what other mechanics people have polarizing opinions on, and then it hit me. Avatars. Avatars were the feature I was looking for. Some people love them, some people hate them, so we have a meaningful choice right there. So I got distracted, my brain latching onto that idea and immediately diving way too deep into the details, and hitting the bottom of the pool face first when I realized that the selection of playable classes would be a problem. For reasons I will keep secret for now, each of the classes the player's avatar can be would have to have a flying class as a secret promotion in addition to the 2 regular ones. And that's where I ran into issues with a lack of fitting battle animations. For instance, I really wanted a thief to be one of the options, just to give the player another character capable of using knives. The 5th is the only full promotion tree that has dagger animations, because while there are quite a few promoted classes that have dagger animations, from the base ones it's just 5th. But the only flyer with knife animations is the Harrier, which would not only limit that particular option to be female only, but it wouldn't really work anyway, because the Harrier doesn't have a sword animation, and promoting from a 5th, she should be able to use swords. Most of the time she could just use the knife animation, I suppose, but it wouldn't look right with Lightbrand and other swords which have a magical ranged attack. Another idea I had is to use the Warbird as one of the flying promotions, because as I stated in a previous devlog, Alexplode's battle animations are some of the best on the repository. A soldier already starting with bows and lances would be perfect as a base class for that, except for the fact that there is no animation for a soldier using a bow. And the search for another option led me to another lengthy distraction, one where I tried making a browser extension that would let me quickly filter all battle animations on the repository by weapons, without having to search 23 folders one by one. I unfortunately had to abandon it before I got it to work when it became apparent that I might end up spending a whole day on just that side project. But at least the 5th idea was eventually resolved thanks to a literal shower thought, that being, why not make a 5th that cannot use swords? If we give her staves instead, while still allowing daggers, she can have a special promotion into Harrier, and regular promotions into Bishop, Sage, Valkyrie or Summoner. But as soon as I got over the distractions caused by my own brain, the universe took notice and over the course of 2 days threw 3 more distractions at me. World of Goo 2 came out on Friday, a sequel to a 15-year-old game that I liked so much as a child that I spent a not insignificant amount of time back at primary school imagining how I would make a sequel to it myself. The premiere date of the final episode of Murder Drones was announced to be less than 3 weeks from now, which, while not immediately relevant, did occupy my mind for a while for a certain reason. And something, I genuinely don't remember what, reminded me that I haven't yet watched Freeren Beyond Journey's End, which was a series I was very interested in based on its premise, so I immediately started doing just that. Though in all honesty, despite being slightly overwhelming in the moment, all of that didn't add up to much lost time, as I mostly engaged with these things at times where I wouldn't be working anyway. The same, however, cannot be said for the thing that killed any chances I had of making the deadline. A day-long family trip, which I was not aware of at the start of last week. And so, a day is just about how much I would still need to finish this chapter. But now that I already missed the deadline anyway, I'd rather not set another one immediately. I will finish this chapter and I will give it some polish, and only then I will upload a released version. Most likely before the next devlog, but I am not making any promises this time. Whatever is the case, I will let you know next week. Until then, farewell.